Started recording the meeting. I'm going to head over back to our presentation. Good morning, everyone. Nothing like a little bit of technical difficulties to get your morning off to the right start, but thank you so much for joining us. Again, we're going to be talking about ESSER federal reporting. My name is Lisette Partlow. I work at OSSE as a management analyst primarily on recovery funding programs, including ESSER, and I coordinate a lot of the reporting to the Department of Education. So today we're going to talk about the timeline for ESSER reporting. ESSER stands for Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund. We're also going to discuss the latest version of the U.S. Department of Education reporting form that they released a few weeks ago. And we're also going to talk about a little bit about what you can do now so that you're ready to complete reporting, in the coming months. By way of a little background, ESSER is a recovery program that was included in 3 separate pieces of legislation: CARES, SRSA, and ARP. So we've been referring to them as ESSER 1, CARES, ESSER 2, SRSA, and ESSER 3, ARP. In total, DC received $600 million through these programs, and all states were required to put 90% of the funds that they received straight through to LEAs through subgrants. And so LEAs in DC have received $540 million through these 3 ESSER programs. And as a condition of receiving funds, both OSSE and LEAs are required to complete annual reporting to the Department of Education. I want to note at the outset of this recording that this webinar is primarily focused on reporting for LEAs that received the regular ESSER 1, 2, or 3 funds. If you received equivalent funds, this presentation is not applicable to you. You will have a more streamlined, shorter reporting requirements, and we're going to be sending you separate guidance about those in the coming weeks. So here's a quick timeline about what you can expect coming up. It is revised slightly from what you may have heard from us in November. The Department of Education did release a new reporting form earlier this month, which we expected to be the final reporting form, but they have indicated that it is actually open for comment, and there is still the possibility of some changes. We think they will be minor between now and the reporting deadline. They did, however, in the new reporting form, indicate that they have set up the deadline for early May, for all SEAs and LEAs to enter their data. We'll be entering your data, for all of the data to be entered into the U.S. Department of Education portal. And so, unfortunately, because we don't have the final form yet, some of these timelines are still in flux, but we wanted to give you as much information as we can, as early as we can, so that you are able to prepare. I want to, in addition to emphasizing that some of this is in flux, also let you know to keep an eye out for the K-12 grants newsletter in February. We will be releasing specific instructions, the data collection tool, and a date of a next webinar, as well as the deadline for the data collection in next month's K-12 grants newsletters. And so please keep an eye out there for more information about the specifics of what you will need to do when you get your data collection tool and how to submit it. We expect, because we do not have the final reporting form yet, but we might not have it until late in the spring, to release the data collection tool shortly next month, and then we will likely need a second data collection with we will include some of the questions that we think may still be in flux in that later data collection. And we're doing this so that you don't have to do an overwhelming amount of data reporting in a very short timeline, because it may be as late as April when we have that final form. And again, everything is due to the Department of Education in May. Any questions about that before we move on? All right. All right, so similar to what we discussed in the November webinar, you can get ready now by preparing a lot of your financial information, making sure you have it organized enough so that you're able to calculate your spending for FY21 by activity, your ESSER spending for FY21 by activity. They're also going to ask you about your plans for current and future spending, so what you're spending your ESSER funding on in FY22 and what you plan to spend it on in future years. And again, we'll be hosting a webinar next month where we'll provide instructions specifically about each data question that you're required to report on, how to answer it, and how to submit that information. Here are some of the things that you can expect from OSSE, from us in the coming months, in addition to the release of the ESSER data collection template in February, which I talked about a little bit before. That template is just an Excel document that you can use that will have the questions that you need to answer included in the document, in the Excel document, and will lay out for you kind of the directions for how to answer those questions. After we release the template, we'll also host additional webinars to provide instructions for how to complete and submit the template. And then the template will be submitted into the integrated data submission tool. You may be familiar with this because it's the same tool used for staff data collection and discipline reporting, but we will walk you through how to fill out your template and then submit it into the integrated data submission tool in that February webinar. And once you submit it into the integrated data submission tool, you'll be able to view all of the information that you submitted and certify the data in what we call the Click app. Questions? All right. So here's the 4 main categories of the types of data requested by the Department of Education. They're going to ask about your FY.
I think there's a couple questions in the chat. So.
Oh, I'm sorry. I can't see the chat while I'm presenting.
No
Linda, do you mind reading them to me and I'll see it?
Yeah, so the first one is for what are the reporting dates for what is the reporting period? Is it federal fiscal year? Is it from July to June?
It's from October 1st, 2020 to September 30th, 2021. So the last fiscal year, FY21.
And then this other question is, will multiple individuals be able to enter ESSER data into the integrated data submission tool?
Multiple individuals will be able to enter information into the template because it's just a regular Excel file. And then once the template is complete, then one person can upload it into the integrated data submission tool. But you'll be able to work together with other members of your staff to add things to the Excel template. Does that answer the question, or is there a follow-up?
I'm not seeing anything else in the chat, but I will type you down again.
Yeah, please pop in. Like I said, I can't see the chat while I'm presenting. Don't have the luxury from work from home with the 4 screens that I normally have at the office. Is there any other questions? Are there any other questions, Linda?
Nope, not at the moment.
Okay, great. So we're going to go over the types of data that the Department of Education is requesting of you. They're going to be asking a lot of information about, excuse me, your uses of funds, your expenditures over FY21, different kinds of programs and activities that you spent ESSER dollars on. They're also going to be asking a little bit about student enrollment and staffing data, both related to ESSER spending and not. They're going to be asking other questions about things that you might have spent ESSER funds on, such as internet services, and they're going to be asking you for plans, like I mentioned earlier, for what you will in the future or what you are this year spending your ESSER dollars on. And then there are also a few equity indicators that they're requesting information on. So I want to note here that the slides that are coming up, they show questions as they appear in the Department of Education's proposed reporting form. this is going to be different than how they will appear in the template provided to you. And in our next webinar, when we're walking through the instructions for how to complete the template, we'll have screenshots of that rather than the Department of Education's template. We'll start with the uses of funds here. I want to note, if you came to the February webinar, that the list of activities that the Department of Education is requesting people LEAs report on has changed. I'm going to zoom in a little bit here. This A through E set of categories that you see, personnel services, salaries and benefits, etc. There are 4 high-level categories where they're asking for that A through E list of expenditures. So you're going to report on all of those types of expenditures that fall into the category of addressing physical health and safety, which you see here, for meeting students' academic, social, emotional, and other needs. 3 for meeting students' mental health needs, and 4 operational continuity, So those 4 main categories, each of them you'll be reporting on things like personnel services, purchase professional services, etc. Another category that the Department of Education is requesting data, student enrollment, and staffing counts. So this is what the student enrollment question looks like. They're going to ask you for a breakdown of student enrollment by a variety of different student groups, and this actually is information that OSSE has on hand from your certified student enrollment counts. So we will pre-populate this for you, and you will not have to answer this question. They're also going to ask a simple question about the total FTEs in your LEA as of September 30th, 2021 for staffing information, and OSSE will also pre-populate this information using data that we already collect. All right, other spending and financial data. One of the things they're going to ask you for is your planned uses of remaining funds. They're going to ask you this for each ESSER 1, ESSER 2, and ESSER 3. You can see here that they're using the same categories that they use for the expenditure data, so addressing physical health and safety, meeting students' academic needs, mental health, etc. And so all that LEAs need to provide here is a percentage number. So with my remaining ESSER 1, ESSER 2 funds for this one, I plan on spending 30% each on addressing physical health and safety, meeting students' academic needs, mental health supports, and then 10% on operational continuity or whatever makes sense for you. I want to note also that they're allowing you to say that you have some funds that are not yet planned for a specific use. So the answer to this question is not something that you will be held to. It is your plan, and they understand that your plans will change as the environment around the pandemic changes. And we also wanted to note here that you'll be able to use the budget and your application information that you have already in EGMS if you want to reference it to assist you in filling out the planned use of funds questions. They're going to ask some other spending questions about information or particular activities that the Department of Education is interested in. What kinds of things did you do to maintain safe in-person instruction? Did you use any of your funds to provide students with home internet access? What have you done during the period of the pandemic to re-engage students? This last one is actually, they're asking regardless of whether you spent ESSER funds on this. All of the 3 top bullets, did the LEA spend funds to? These are actually yes or no questions, and then they have a list of kind of sub-activities within each of those questions for you to answer yes or no. The bottom question, which activities or interventions did the LEA implement to satisfy the mandatory set-aside? That's the 20% set-aside for unfinished learning from ESSER 3 ARP. This is a short answer question, so you'll be asked to provide a couple of paragraphs to describe the activities that you did to satisfy that requirement. And then you may remember from the November presentation, if you attended, that they had several equity indicators in their previous, the Department of Education, I shouldn't say they, had several equity indicators in their the previous version of their data collection form. They've shortened this section of reporting questions quite a bit in this latest version of the form. So what they're asking here is for any LEA that passed funding along to individual schools to identify yes or no. Did you use any of these criteria listed A through G to determine how you passed funding along to schools? I wanted to make a note of some questions that are going to be required for FY22 ESSER reporting. So they are applying to things that you are doing in this current year. One is there's going to be much more detailed hiring and retention information about ESSER spending on staff. They're going to ask it at the level of detail of, by school and position. This we anticipate is something that OSSE can pre-populate for you, can fill in for you through data that we have already when it does come up on the reporting form next year. They're also going to ask you, and I want to note here because this may have implications for how you are keeping track of your records for this school year, that they're going to ask for participation information for a lot of your activities that you used ESSER funds on. So for example, summer learning programs, after school, extended instructional time tutoring. They're going to be asking, or we expect, as long as it doesn't change, that they will be asking for all of these activities, which students were served by them, and they're going to ask you to disaggregate that information by several student subgroups. And again, I just want to reiterate that everything on this slide applies to next year's reporting, so you will not see these questions in this year's reporting. But we wanted you to be aware. Okay, so that concludes the summary of the kinds of questions the Department of Education is asking and what you can expect in the upcoming data collection form that you'll receive in a few weeks. I wanted to just reiterate our get ready slide, the things that you can do to be prepared for the upcoming reporting season. Make sure to keep a lookout in the K-12 Grants newsletter for upcoming February webinar to provide instructions for how you can submit your data and the template for what data you need to submit. And then also make sure that your spending and financial information is organized so that you can calculate your FY21 spending by grant, by ESSER grant, and by activity. And in the meantime, what you can expect from OSSE in terms of providing reporting support, we will keep in touch with you through the K-12 Grants newsletter and additional webinars to provide the information that you need and answer questions about both the reporting form and what you need to submit to OSSE in order to meet your reporting requirements. We will also pre-populate as much of the information as possible so that that's the information that is pre-populated will kind of be out of sight, out of mind. We won't ask you those questions and they will appear in the Click app excuse me, when you submit your data, and you will be able to see them when you certify your data, but we will be using data we already have on hand for that. And then of course, throughout this process, please feel free to submit any questions that you have to the OSSE ESSER help email, which you see on the slide right here. And then we will additionally, after the release of the data reporting template and it's kind of mid-webinar, we will also host office hours and give you lots of chances to pop in and ask your specific questions. Oh, I forgot about this. We are here, the webinar about the Department of Education's reporting form. Okay, I want to transition to questions. Linda, will you help me? Actually, you know what? I can probably just stop sharing here and then I'll be able to see the chat and any questions folks have already asked and see if I can answer. Oh boy. All right, I'm going to stop recording so that folks can feel comfortable